So my name's Dan Hughes. I'm one of the co-founders of Clarity AI, and we help companies really through education of generative AI, strategy, and implementation. So we've been doing a lot of education because it's a fairly new technology, which we'll dive into. Really, the purpose of this meeting, and I want really everybody to please take me up on this, is it's not scripted. I mean, I have things that I want to cover, and I'll go over that in the agenda. But the nature of generative AI is it's a very unstructured, it's a very creative process. And these tools are creative and they draw on a different part of our brains than we're used to with computers. So by all means, as I get into examples, please fire away and we can certainly take it in a number of directions. So I'll show everybody the agenda I have here. Let me share my screen and just kind of give a heads up of what we're going to try to accomplish today. We can deviate from this, of course. This is a little bit more than an intro course. I did a presentation a few weeks ago, and it was pretty basic in what I covered. Today we're going to take it to another level. But the first thing I want to do is talk about, what are some of the other Gen AI tools out there? You've heard of probably Bard, and you definitely heard of ChatGPT, but there's two others that I want to just touch on. And then we're going to get into prompt engineering. And what that is that's the ability to actually engage with these AI models. It's called prompting. And so it does take a little bit of a skill to prompt the AI models, and learning that skill and understanding how the AI models respond to us as users is really important to understand. So we're going to take you through that. And then ChatGPT as a data analysis tool. Most people don't know about this capability, so we're going to spend some time doing this and going through some examples. ChatGPT has a vision capability now, which is it can look at schematics, it can look at floor plans, it can look at words from a screen, it can look at just marketing materials. So lots and lots of capabilities with vision. It's fairly new. Image generation is another thing that not a lot of people use, but I have seen already teams starting to brainstorm with using image generation, using it for logo brainstorming or product brainstorming, just different ideas. So that'll guide our conversation, but by all means, just let's jump in. I'm going to show a slide that I did show last time, but it's important to talk about this. AI has been around for 60, 70 years. And many of us on the call were talking about AI's use back in the 80s. And so one of the things that makes generative AI very different is those technologies and uses of AI were really more around supervised learning models, where we teach it based on lots and lots of examples, and then it learns from those examples and then applies that learning. And that's pretty predictive. We all use it with Netflix and Amazon, and we see applications of AI every day, Alexa, Siri, all those. But with generative AI, it's important to understand we've never had a reasoning engine. We've never had a computer system that most of the computer systems in the past have been deterministic. Now we actually have a reasoning engine that understands language and happens to understand a lot of facts, which is why it can pass the SAT, and it has basically a higher IQ than most people when it was tested. So ChatGPT is really just the tip of the iceberg, and that's what everyone's seeing. It's the first application, but we're already working with companies on stuff that's below the surface. And I'll be happy to talk about some of those, but it is very big. This is pretty significant, and I think people are going to be very surprised that a year from now, just how far this thing advances. Because from last year to this year, it's tenfold, or I don't know. It's pretty significant over last year, and we're on an exponential type of technology curve. So lots of potential here, and I think it's important for people to understand what this thing is called generative AI. Couple things that we're going to also cover today. Generative AI applications that I'll be talking about today. If you want to think of it like a thumb rule, what are they good at? Well, they're really good at writing because they're language models. And so everything you see us create and engage in, the language is really, really good. And it's a better writer than, I mean, than almost any human now. Um, and it demonstrates that to me over and over again. It's an extremely good reader. So it can read, you could load a 50-page document and it can read it in 30 seconds. And it can produce a summary or give you insights from that 50-page document in less than a minute. So it can comprehend and read large amounts of data. It's obviously the chatting capabilities where we as humans can engage in chats and produce actions from these chats, which we'll be talking about, and there's a lot of potential there. And then the vision and image generator that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to jump right in. Anybody has any questions, just fire away as we're going along here, but we're going to jump right into the tools and get started. So can I just get a hand? How many people have used ChatGPT? Can you give a reaction or something so we can just get a feel for how many people have used it? See if I can see the whole. I can't see everybody because I'm sharing my screen, but oh, there we go. Did anybody catch how many people roughly? Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick overview of the tool just for anyone who hasn't used it. So ChatGPT is a chatbot application, and it's produced by a company called OpenAI. OpenAI is one among several other companies that have these chatbots. Today, most of our conversation will be around ChatGPT, but I will introduce a couple others. If you want to get an account, go to openai.com and then click on Try ChatGPT. You can sign up for free, and you can at least use the free version. Everything I'm showing today is the premium version, which is $20 a month. So it's pretty reasonable. So ChatGPT is a website. It's just chat.openai.com. And the first thing you'll notice when you come to it, it looks a lot like Google. There's a message bar down here. That's it. It's pretty simple. There's this thing called 3.5 up here at the top, at the center, and then there's GPT-4. What these represent are AI models, and think of them as neural network models that have certain capabilities. 3.5 is a legacy, so it has less reasoning skills, it has less capabilities in many different areas, but it's still a very capable model. And so if you sign up for free, you will find that it's still pretty capable. GPT-4 is the most advanced model. They just released the GPT-4 Turbo the other day, but right now for the public, it's GPT-4. And you'll notice when I click on this, we have a bunch of options down here. And one of them is we can browse the internet through this tool. We can do data analysis through this tool. We have some plugins, which one of the plugins I like is it's a plugin for transcribing YouTube videos. And so that's a plugin. You select the plugin, you click and you copy a YouTube link and you paste it in. And then DALL-E 3, which is the image generator. And we'll get into each one of these. Over on the left here is a sidebar, is you engage in conversations with a chatbot. And so it's important to think about if I have a subject that I want to engage with, I want to open a chat for that subject. So I was running an example earlier, and for instance, down here, I'm creating a teacher co-pilot for teachers to have an AI co-pilot that they can use. You guys have your Neil, your hand raised, or is that just layout hangover? Okay. And so think of a chat as a conversation about a topic. And so you can start a chat by just clicking new chat. It starts the chat. Once you start working the chat, the name will fill in over here. And you can engage in a chat for a long time. It has memory of your chat. And so in my case, I was building a teacher co-pilot. And in this case, it was just creating an image, and then it kind of explained it. But this chat could go on for pages and pages, and you can share these chats. And some chats, one of the ones I did the other day, was trying to build a quoting system, an Excel-based quoting system as a prototype. Look how long this chat is. And this basically, I presented to ChatGPT is I want to create a quote system using Excel. The quote system is for an assembly manufacturer and so forth. But look how long this goes. It gives all kind of examples and back and forth, and ultimately it created it for me in Excel. It did the formulas and everything, but this is a very long chat. Well, if I wanted to share this with someone so that they could see how I did that, up the top here, you can just share the chat. So we want to think of your chats as it's your place where you work on a particular subject, and then you can save it. You don't have to delete it. If you're done with it, you can delete it. As you can see, I have a whole bunch of chats here from the past. Another key item with these applications is setting the context of the actual chat, of the actual AI model. So I'm going to click on, down here is the user ID and your user settings. I click on the settings. And in settings, we have the theme, we have beta features, and then we have data controls. And you just have to kind of go through here and make sure you have your plugins set up, click those on, make sure you have your color. But you can do data controls here where you can export all of your conversations to an Excel file. So if you want to share those for any reason, and you can also share link, you can manage your links. So if you gave someone a link to your chat, but then you want to take it away from them, you can manage that. And then if you want to turn history off and training, where if you turn the history off, then OpenAI doesn't have access to your information. And they can't use your data for training purposes. Now, the key thing underneath the settings is custom instructions. Sorry. And this is extremely important, because when you work with an AI model, it's important to have context of who you are and what your style is, what your writing style is, what your background is. You want to really provide these chats with as much context information as possible. So for instance, when you go into custom instructions, and your chatbot will perform a lot different based on how you complete this. And all chatbots in the future will all be focused more on our preferences and our ways and our styles and our knowledge. And so this is kind of the start of that. So the first thing is, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? Now, I happen to put, I'm a data analytics and generative AI consultant. My company specializes in helping customers select, implement Gen AI. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're experts in data and assisting clients in implementing technical solutions. We are professionals. So it's kind of, I'm laying the context that this is my business. And so when I'm engaging in things, it knows already that we're an AI consultant. And a lot of times when it produces results and content, it comes from that perspective. Now, down here is where I changed it, because when you first start using ChatGPT, you may notice that it has salesy language or platitudes, or it's throwing out just styles that really sound too phony, to be honest. And so if you want your conversation, your content to sound more real, you have to explain it to it what your style is and how you approach communications. Do you like a little humor put into it? Well, you can say, I like to sprinkle humor in my conversations. And so in my case, I said, please refrain from using promotional sales language and avoid business cliches and platitudes. Maintain a friendly yet professional tone throughout our conversation. Engage in a manner that is conversational, clear, and concise. Now, I had to do that because a lot of times I'm using this tool to generate proposals or to generate content that then gets sent to other people. And so if I'm building a proposal, I want it to come, I don't want it to use, I want it to be friendly, professional, not using sales language, being concise, and you have to instruct it to do that. Now, you'll notice that down here, there's 1,500 words that can be put in, or characters. I'm not sure which one it is, but you could put a sample of your writing in here and say, here's a sample of how I write, and just kind of drop a blurb in and then see how it does. But this is an important part that a lot of people aren't aware of. They don't know that you can set these custom instructions and how they will shape and influence the content that gets delivered to you. Any questions on this? Anything I've covered?
Dan, quick question. So if you put in a sample of your writing, it won't limit, because I generally find that ChatGPT writes probably better. I have to usually take a lot of words out because I don't talk like that. I mean, will it be a higher level to some degree still if you add in a sample of your writing?
Yeah. Okay. So there's great question, Keith. There's two ways to solve this problem. Here's an example. One is my business partner sits on an environmental board, and he wrote a paper that was going out to the community. And he wrote the paper, and the rest of the board members said, it's kind of technical. It's going out to the community, but it's kind of technical. So he took it, put it into ChatGPT, and he said, write it for a 12, convert this so that it's written for a 12-year-old. It was 12-year-old, 13-year-old, whatever, 14-year-old. He then presented it back, and they were like, yeah, this sounds great. So that was an example where he was speaking too high, but the audience really needed it in simple terms. No jargon, keep it simple, right? And rule number one in communications, right? Avoid jargon and all that kind of stuff. So in your case, you could experiment and say, write it at a 12th grade level. Write it at a 15. It's not an insult to people to write at 12-year-olds. Honestly, the best communication is simple. And so you could experiment with that. Or you could put some of your writing in here and say, look, use this as a guide on my writing style and my writing level that I like to communicate. And try both, and you'll see. But you may find that, well, actually, you know what? If you were to discover that, let's just say that write it so that a 15-year-old can understand. Let's say we all agree that that's the best way to write. You could actually put that in your custom instructions, say, I want all my communication to be written for a 15-year-old level. And then everything being written would be written at that style and that level. So you have a lot of flexibility to play around with your context, or when you're actually writing, you can tell it to do that. So experiment a little bit and reach out to me if you know how that goes, if you want to kind of brainstorm about that. But once you get it, you'll get it right. You just got to kind of play with it a little bit. So what I'd like to do is I wanted to start off by introducing you to a couple tools. So this was ChatGPT. The next one is Claude. And Claude is by a company called Anthropic. They are the founders. They're one of the guys who's the co-founders of OpenAI. Now, why would you use Claude? Well, I'm going to give you an example. There are times when we want to grab a document and we want to summarize the document and ask questions of it. And so I have an example here of a transcript from a meeting, and the meeting is 16 pages long. So if I go that, 16 pages long. So if I highlight this, so let's say it's a transcript of a meeting and I want to run a whole bunch of questions by it. So first thing I could do is I could say we'll do select all, and then I copy it. And if I come back into ChatGPT, I'm going to drop it in this one, and I paste it, and I just hit enter. You see it says the message you submitted was too long. So there are some other options in ChatGPT, but when you have a very, very large document, to feed it into an AI model and just drop and paste it gives you tremendous capabilities. And we do this for meeting text all the time. But in Claude, so ChatGPT only has a window that you can paste in is like 4,000 words, and then you're done. You can't put any more than that in, paste it in. Now that's going to change, but for now, you have a limit. Claude has 75,000 words. So pretty much any document you come across, you can copy the whole thing and just do select all, just like I did here. You can come over here to Claude, and I'm going to paste it in. So now I just pasted that 16, 17 page document in. I've pasted a 112 page document in. Now you see it here where it says paste. So that complete document is right here. So that's it right there. It's all been put in. And so now it's inside of the model. And so I could say, analyze the text, analyze the attached meeting text, and provide me a detailed review. I can't do this in ChatGPT now because it only can take 4 or 5 pages of docs. So now I have the ability, all right, now I have a whole bunch of stuff I'm ready to go, and I can just start really digging into this document. So it goes over the overview of the meeting, and you can see it's getting pretty detailed. And once it does the overview, I can say, okay, you know, there's one thing we discussed, which is data inputs. And I can say expand on the data inputs conversation. So now it'll just pick that one point, and now we're going to get it to analyze from that. So this is the way. I think everybody's going to look back and we're going to laugh at the way we used to take notes, because there's no human being who could ever take notes during meetings like the way AI can, and the way AI can allow you to interpret it. So, but that entire 18-page document can be cut, ideas can be generated from it. We've had meetings with customers. We grab the meeting, we say, give us proposed solutions that we could go back to that customer with, and it writes proposal ideas. So that's why we use Claude. Is the only reason we use Claude is when we have to digest large documents. This is all going to change. ChatGPT is going to allow you to load large documents not too far in the future. But for now, Claude AI's main use case in my mind is that's it. It's really good for analyzing large documents. Any questions on Claude? And it uses a free version and there's a paid version. So just jump on the free version. It's easy. $20 if you want to do the paid version. The free version gives you like maybe eight messages a day or something like that, or 8 messages every 4 hours or 6 hours. And you just sign up Claude.ai. Any questions before we move on? I highly encourage you to try this. If you have a document that you want to analyze, a legal document or something that's a really large document, copy and drop it in and start playing around with it. Okay, so next one is perplexity.ai. So perplexity.ai, which is interesting, if you guys look, it's actually Claude 2 and GPT-4 is the engine. And so now it benefits from both of those tools, ChatGPT and Claude 2. And what this is a chatbot, just like the other ones, but it really shines in for research. That's where it really does a good job. So if we say, provide me some use cases for generative AI in healthcare. So you'll notice that it works very similar. You just type in your question. Down here, I can select Copilot, which will actually help guide you through getting the best answer. But this is the guys at Perplexity, they're trying to pitch themselves and develop a product that's a very good research tool, and that people go to when they want to research, because they have the benefit of a chat bot, you have the benefit of the GPT and Claude, but it's connected to the internet and has a very good ability to go find sources. So think of it like Google on steroids. So now I click go. And the first thing it will do is it's searching the web, and look at these are all the sources that it identified. Right away, it identified 8 sources. Then it came in, and then with its ability to write, it analyzed these sources, and now it's providing a brief answer to what we said. We said we want to know generative AI solutions in healthcare. And now it's going through and it's actually referencing. Each one has a reference to this point. So if you want to do further analysis, you just click on that, and then it opens up the actual source. So could be, depending on how you do research and what your needs are, could be an option for you to have another tool in the toolbox for quickly going out and discovering things. It's given me a lot of ideas. I mean, I've used this thing, and what it comes back with is some resources I found incredibly helpful, because it came back with articles that I wasn't aware of. And because it does the source, now you get to the bottom of it, it actually gives you some more related, how can generative AI be used to improve medical imaging? Gives you kind of some follow-up questions there. We could continue on from there. Engaging. Same thing with the other ones. You save your history, so your chat gets saved, and you can share your chats. So if you do some research and you come up with some great content, you can shoot it over to someone else and say, hey, check this out. This is what I just found. And so you could have a dialogue going with the chat. Anybody think they would use a tool like this particular one? Any reasons?
Yeah, I put in the chat competitive analysis.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to start playing around with. Now, it does give you the ability to actually upload files here. You'll notice it allows you to upload text or PDF files. So you could upload, I have not used this feature, but you could upload a text file. And then as you're chatting with that text, you also have the benefit of being connected to the internet. So you could load, I'm thinking you could probably load some, maybe some of your material, and you could say, I want to improve my materials by using what's out there, and it will go research and then maybe give you some suggestions. Or I have not used that feature, but by all means, just play with it. A lot of this AI is it's a creative exercise, and there's no right answer. You just have to start and engaging in these models and just start to see what it can do. I could say, like, what else can I do now to understand in healthcare? So, like, I don't know, maybe I don't know. And so you just tell it, I have no idea. What should I do next? And then it will give you some ideas.
Hey, Dan, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the fact that this one gives you the articles that it's pulling from, I found very interesting, because one of, I think, the concerns is, how do you know what it's giving you is, fact-based? I mean, I think we've all seen or listened to podcasts or whatever with examples of forgive me, bullshit being returned, which could be a real problem. How do you sort of do your fact checking or reasonableness checking or whatever to sort of know that you are receiving things that are things that you can count on and use?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think we'll go back to ChatGPT, because that's where most of it's called hallucinations. So these AI models have a level of creativity to them, and that creativity is called temperature. And the beauty of that creativity is you can say, help me brainstorm 5 names for a new product that I'm going to launch. And it will come up with the creativity to actually brainstorm these names. And so with that creativity capability, it also has the ability to make stuff up and go off. And so what we have found, and this is how we mitigate that, is the more detail you provide it of your particular area and what you're working on, you will see that the hallucination is really not a problem. You'll see the hallucination more when you just go in and just do some generic things like, hey, create me a presentation on 15 reasons why we're not going to be able to get to Mars. And right, and you just ask for a subject for it to draw on. But if you're not a master of that subject, it's like anything else. Someone gives you or says something, you have to validate it. So most of the things we work with and we see people working with, it's all areas that we're expert, we're pretty competent in the area. We typically do not just go in and rely on ChatGPT. It's an augmentation tool for us as a team. And so I was doing we're doing on December 1st, we're doing a workshop, and I was using it to help me create some of the content for the workshop. And it was back and forth, and then I'd write some, then I feed it in and say, review it, look for typos, look for grammar, just a little, just back and forth. And so I think that's how we actually use it. So I think the hallucination thing is for people who are day-to-day using as an augmentation tool. I don't see it as a problem. But I also appreciate its ability to have creativity. Now, these settings of creativity can be adjusted. They can't be adjusted in ChatGPT, but when you do the direct API to the engine and you build applications, you can set the creativity. You can make it 0, and that means the answer is the same every time. It's very deterministic. 1 + 1 = 2. And it's always, but typically the temperature is set around 0.7, and then it gives you the ability to get more out of it, the model. So as we go through examples here, I don't think you'll see any evidence of hallucination because of the way we're using it. And this is the way we see most people using it.
So just to reiterate for myself and for everybody, it's really the more detailed your context, the less likely you're going to get crap.
Yeah. Well said, Joe.
I'm trying to do it simply, right?
Joe,
Well,
I can verify that. When I was real vague, it gave me real vague answers. When I went pinpoint specific, I got tremendous research from it.
Great, thank you.
Definitely. All right.
Dan, for Claude as well as Perplexity, do you just have the free versions, or do you have the pro versions, the premium versions for all?
I have the free version for both Claude and Perplexity. Yep.
Okay.
And the free versions, honestly, it's been fine for me, the way I use it.
And what does the premium version of ChatGPT give you that the free version would not?
Yes. Okay. Great question. So the free version, you get 3.5 model. That's it. But you don't get the ability to upload files. You don't get the vision. You don't get the image generator. So if I come over here, so I have ChatGPT Plus, and the reason I have it is because we use it every day. But if I come over to GPT-4, you notice the drop down. There's no drop down. There's no capabilities here. Click on GPT-4 and we have all these capabilities. So that's why it's a no-brainer when you use it all the time. It's just a no-brainer. But I use the free versions of the other ones. So we're going to cover these aspects of it right now. All right, so we'll go into the default. So if you have the plus version, $20 a month, we're going to start with default. All right, so with the default, you have the ability to engage in a chat, load, copy and paste stuff in, interact with it, all that, generate content. You also have the ability to select images and what's called GPT Vision, which will interpret documentation. So I had an example earlier today, which I thought would be a cool example to show everybody, and that is, let me just find it. Okay, so I was watching a YouTube video on basically talking about industrial revolution with AI, creating it. And in this video, the guy was going through the history of different industrial revolutions that we have had through history. And he had this nice slide here, right? And I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That would be a good example of why vision is so good, because what if I wanted to grab this content and actually use it in something that I'm creating? Well, normally you'd have to, he wasn't given the slide, it was a YouTube video. And so you'd have to type it. Well, I snipped it using the snipping tool, and now I have a PNG file. So I can take this, so down here in the message bar, I click on the little image icon, and now I select the snip, which is this right here, and I can say, provide me the details from this image. And so it will read that and put it into text for me, and now I can just take and copy that, and now I have that text. Well, what we've discovered is there's a lot of uses for this, and I'll show you some other ones that I wasn't even realizing, but there's a lot of times when we take pictures or when we see things and we want to actually get that information. So it perfectly laid out in less than 15 seconds all of this image into the text, and now I have the text and I can just take it and use it. So the other example, so here's another example that shows you just how good this is I have a wiring schematic, and I'm going to ask it to describe. Now this is where because this is not my expertise, although I was an electrician right out of high school, I don't know, this could hallucinate. So this is where you would need some expertise, but it will take this image now, it will read it, and I've loaded some pretty complex org charts and things like that, and it converted the whole. I loaded a very complex org chart, and I was very surprised that it did the whole thing. So now it's going at it and it's interpreting. So it even says the image appears to be a schematic diagram for a circuit, which is a graphical representation, blah, blah, blah. Here's a description. So now it just lists each of the components. Schematic is drawn in a CAD program and so forth. So what we're discovering now is we have customers one customer said, well, wait a minute, we get schematics and drawings all the time. That means we could potentially just have this interpret the schematic and drop it in, extract all the components out of the schematic. So it's something that I don't think any of us thought about, just how good this stuff. I mean, this is the beta version still, but it's really good. So just to show you like just how practical this can be too. I have a food inventory from a shelf where I have some food, and then I have a sailboat, so it's on the sailboat, and I can say what meals can I make from the items in the picture. So this will demonstrate it's not just reading an image. There's a level of reasoning and intelligence that comes into this. So here's all the items. Well, I'm glad I could do the peanut butter sandwich. There's no bread in there, but And you know what else it will do is actually, like, if you say, I want to make coffee infused, I want to make coffee infused blueberry muffins. It will actually figure out, can that be done, and give you a recipe for that. That's the level of creativity. There's nothing on the internet. I don't think if you say coffee infused blueberry muffins, I'm not even sure if you find a recipe. So that's the level of creativity we're dealing with here. Is it really can think outside the box. And that's how you want to think about this. Is it's an augmentation tool to yourself to give you capabilities that, quite frankly, some things you just haven't had. And that's how you have to think about it. Is this is more than just an email writer or, a blog writer. It's way beyond that. Any questions on the image part?
I just had a quick question, but not about the image. I'm just looking at your drop down on GPT-4. I'm just wondering why you have more drop downs than I do. I only have I have default, I have browse with Bing, and I have DAL E3, and that's it. I don't have the advanced data analytics plugin or any of that.
Okay, that's okay, great. Let's go down. If you go down here, Keith, down at the bottom, you see the 3 dots.
Yeah.
And this is for everybody to make sure you have this turned on. Click on those 3 dots, go to settings in beta.
Okay.
And then in beta features, turn on the plugin and the advanced data analysis. And then
okay. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Anybody else, just to make sure it's in settings, beta features, turn those on. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so that's the first one. Now, you can browse with Bing, which does the same thing we did in Perplexity. So let's go back to Perplexity and let's ask the same question. I'm going to copy this question. Provide me some use cases for generative AI in healthcare. I'm going to come into GPT-4, select browse with Bing. Now ChatGPT is connected to the internet. I'm going to paste that question and see what it does, and we'll compare it to Perplexity and see what the response is. So now you see it's firing up the Bing browser, brings Bing search engine, and it's going out. And so now it's coming back, clinical documentation, assisting clinic. Now, notice how it doesn't give you the sources, which is, oh, okay, here it is. Actually, there's a source. It doesn't list the sources out. It actually, so if I click on one of these sources, let's see how good it is. Okay. So that's pretty good. So has 2 sources. Both of them seem to work, which is good. Looks like we got assisting clinical caregivers, personal treatment plans, medical. So this is not bad at all. Pretty good. They added Bing a few months back, or actually probably a month ago. They added it back in, but they took it out because it wasn't performing well. But it looks like it's not bad. So you could try your research in ChatGPT. And if you want to try both, just do it in Perplexity and do a side-by-side comparison and see the benefits. Perplexity is trying to be a research engine. And so I suspect that's what their focus is going to be, and they're going to keep building that functionality out. But by all means, this will give you, if you do web browsing, this will give you access to the internet, and you can do those same type of. Now, what's the second question we asked was, what else can I do to understand Gen AI? Let's ask that and see. We do this a lot where we compare the results of AI models. We compare Claude and ChatGPT sometimes because we just want to see how it's performing. So, all right, so it's not bad. It's given different things we can do. In that case, there's no references. It just made it up from its knowledge. Seems like it's reasonable. So I don't typically do much with the browsing function. in ChatGPT. So if I come here, that I don't typically do much, but I think if you're going to do research on a competitor, or if you're going to analyze, you can even analyze your website. So we could take Clarity's website, and I could just paste it in. Let's see what it would do. We'll do Bing, and then we'll say review the following website. And depending on how the website's set up, sometimes it scrapes them better than others. However, the data is organized within a spread, you'll find that some people's websites, it can get data easily off of, out of the website, the underlying code, and then some it's not. So this is pretty good for our website to pick that up. So it's a research tool. It allows you to analyze a bunch of, website and content out there. So play with it, and it's pretty straightforward. It's like Google, but it allows you to interface with a natural language interface and then ask questions. Any questions about this one? Okay. All right. So this is a big feature, which is advanced data analysis. I don't think people realize just how big this is, because for the first time, we as non-data scientists, now who don't know Python, now have the ability to do complex analysis. And the generative AI model will be the interface and allow you to put natural language in. And then in ChatGPT, it will actually execute Python to accomplish that job. So let's start with, we'll start with the first example. Now, I'm gonna kind of, this is not scripted. So I'm going to act like this is how we normally act with ChatGPT every day. So I'm going to take a general ledger transaction register. I'm going to take a consolidated bank statement. I'm going to take two Excel files, and I'll show everybody what these look like. So the general ledger file looks like this. It has debits, credits, it has a bank account, reference, description, transaction, and a date. And then the bank statement looks like this. It's a date, transaction ID, description, reference, debit, credit, and balance. And it shows the bank account because there's two bank accounts here. And I had AI generate these, by the way. I didn't generate them myself because I was going to do a demo on bank statements. So I said, well, let's just have AI do the work. So I said, generate a general ledger transaction table with two bank accounts. It generated that. And then I said, generate a bank statement that I can use to do the reconciliation against that. And it generated this file here, all using this tool that I'm about to show you. So now we're in here and I hit the little plus button. So just so everyone's following, up here under GPT-4, select Advanced Data Analysis. Then down in this message bar, click the plus button. And then you can select your Excel files. You can load other files too, but for now, we're just going to talk about Excel. And so what I want to do, actually, I do have the first.
So Dan, when you hit the plus button, does it automatically go to your computer files and you can just pick your files and it uploads them just by hitting the plus?
Yes, it'll pop open and you can go to your desktop or your application. You can just whatever. It's just a normal Explorer. In the case of a Mac, it opens up, the Mac version of the Finder. And then you just select your files. And like I said, you can upload, you can convert a WAV file, I think, to an MP3, and you can load a PowerPoint document, you can load a Word document. You can load a lot of other various. It would take too long to go into all of those. In our case, CSV and Excel files is what we'll focus on. So now I have these two files loaded, and I say, first thing I want to do is analyze the attached files. And so that's the first thing I want to do is just, does it understand what it's actually looking at? So now it says, it seems that you provided two Excel files. Can everyone see this okay? Or I'll blow it up a little bit there. So now it's oh, okay. So it seems you have Excel files. Could you please specify what type of analysis you'd like me to do? Okay, so analyze and tell me the contents. Now this is where you'll see it. It will kick off Python, which is right here. It will load a Python library, and it will, and Python, for anyone who doesn't know, is one of the most powerful languages in the world. It's used for extensive amounts of data science and different application builds. So we have the benefit of that. We don't even have to look at it. We can look at most, we can look at our plain language. So it runs the Python for us. It does all that. Then it comes back and then it interprets it into natural language. Both Excel files, general ledger transaction and consolidate bank, contain 100 entries each. Here are the detailed contents. So it identified the columns in each of the Excel files. And then it labeled the consolidated bank statements. Now notice how I put it in plain language, where the actual files had it in more, more file structure where you have an underscore and you have lowercase, right? It had it in those conventions, but notice how it changed it to language that a business person, as you're looking at it, would put it. So it listed all this, and now I say, okay, so there is a high level overview of the data set. If you need further analysis, let me know. So next step is perform a reconciliation between the ledger file and the bank statements. So notice how I'm not using syntax like very specific words. I'm just speaking. I'm just saying it like I think it. I'm not worrying about, am I getting all the wording right or anything like that. All right, so here it goes. It goes, here's a common approach to reconcile these files. It lays out its thought process on doing the actual reconciliation. Now it runs the Python, which is all right here. And it comes back and says the reconciliation process resulted in the following. There are 95 matched transactions that were found in both the ledger and the bank statement. There are 5 transactions that are only present in general ledger and only in the bank statement. And then it gives you an overview, transactions only in general ledger, and then transactions only in the bank statement. It tells you what the transaction IDs are. And then we say, okay, would you like to delve into the discrepancies or perform any more specific? So I'll say, download the full reconciliation to Excel. So all the work that it's been doing, this is important to remember, you can have this do a massive amount of work in Excel and then download it, and it's all prepped and prepared for you. So now it's an Excel file here, so I'm going to click on that. Click on the full. And so here is our reconciliation. So it has the general ledger, the records that are only in general ledger, and the ones that are only, so the discrepancies are right here listed. And then it has the matched transactions in this file. And as you can imagine, right, I was giving it pretty generic type of reconciliation commands, but if you were working on real files, you're going to be guiding it in very specific type things that you need. But what's important to understand is it has far more capabilities than I think anyone realizes. Because you have Python, you really do have the capabilities of executing some pretty sophisticated math on these spreadsheets. And you can do merges, you can do data cleanups. So you can do an incredible amount of stuff that takes people a very long time. Is on the road now to having an augmentation tool to assist them. I wouldn't say it replaces it just yet, but we're marching down the road where we have a really powerful now Copilot tool that's with us. Any questions on how that worked? Does anybody in the group have an example how they would actually use this tool with Excel? Any accountants? Anybody? Doug, you look like you're going to say something.
The power of this is just incredible. So I'm in mergers and acquisitions, and I'm starting to see I could really use these tools.
Well, if I understand what you're doing here, in effect, and using Doug, your mergers and acquisitions environment, this would allow you to do an extremely accelerated review of the financials, and in fact, audit their processes by reconciling various points in their processing, so you know whether the numbers you're getting are any good or not. Correct?
Yeah, it could really help.
How it's
How
done
much?
now is most people use Excel and they use formulas in Excel and they do V lookups, X lookups, H lookups, right? We have all this stuff we have to do. And Python is way more powerful than formulas. And so now we can get the best of both worlds, right? Because you could still have this do part of it, and then you do part of it in Excel after you have it do some of the heavy lifting. That's really how we are using it now, is where it's not able to do everything for us 100%, but it's able to do a pretty good amount.
Well, I assume this is because it's Python. You don't have the risk you do in Excel where the analyst has screwed up the equation, because Excel spreadsheets are pretty notorious for having errors.
Yeah, and here's a little thing that honestly I didn't even think about this, but when I was repeating this reconciliation process, I was running the prompts each time. But after I did that, I'm like, wait a minute, we have the Python now. So really, when I went down here and I said perform the reconciliation, really all I need to do is grab this Python and just have it execute that every time. Not the prompt, because the prompt could give some variation, where here now I have the full code. And so you can take that code. I don't know if it would actually work if I like open this up, we'll have to see. But if I open this up and then drop the code in, I don't know if I could I might have to do a little bit more, but I'll try. If I take these two files, upload them, and now just do the Python, we'll see what happens. It might break, but because really that's what you want to do every month. If you have a monthly process, you don't want to run the prompts every month, you want to run the Python. So to proceed with the
right.
Looks like it's
I mean, once you validated the Python, either the results or whatever, then yeah, you've got a standard process you can have pretty much anybody do.
Exactly, yeah. And they don't have to know, you don't have to know how to run Python. Just say go to ChatGPT, upload it, drop your Python in, and run it, download it, and we got our thing. And yep, it actually worked.
Yeah, my last client is an electric construction company, and they had quite a mess in their IT shop, and the accounting department was having a lot of trouble just closing the books. And being able to do stuff like this would probably speed them up by an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have to show the Python, or is it working in the background whether you show it or not?
Right. It doesn't, its default is not to show it, but from audit purposes, or from actually grabbing the Python like I just did, you just click on the little drop down, then it gives you all the Python.
But how do you use that Python data? Do you use that at all, or it's just there?
Yeah. So here's what I did. Just so you can see again. So let me just go back to this one here. So what I did was I created the chat. All right. All right. So here's the Python right here. And so in this one I did earlier, right, I used natural language. And I said, I want you to reconcile, this, and so it did it. Once it completed the reconciliation, I was comfortable that was the right answer. Now I have the Python. So I copied the Python, let's bring it over here. So here was the original one we did. And so I went in here. Now this is the Python. I was comfortable that it was working. You see how it says copy code? Another thing you'll notice is look how nice the code is actually documented. It's all documented very well. Anybody who works with programmers knows a lot of times coding is not documented. It's all over the place. Well, it's very nicely documented. So I copy code here. Then I start a new chat. So let's pretend next month comes along. We get 2 files. I get the 2 files. I upload them. I get my general ledger and I get my consolidated bank statement. Now I uploaded them. But instead of asking it to reconcile, I copy and paste. You see how I just pasted in? That's the Python I just pasted in. Now I hit go. And every month you could perform this now. Because every month you're running the same Python, but you're using ChatGPT to run that and execute it. But you use your natural language to generate the Python the first time when you go through it.
Yeah, Dan, the other piece of this is it has thrown in behind this interface a Python execution environment that normally you would have to have a server someplace and a person or 2 or 3 to administer that environment, and now it's just all sitting here, which is scary as shit.
That's right. Yeah,
Are you looking at a shortened life, Joe, for work?
Well, I mean, it's going to have a lot of upheaval in a lot of places for a lot of people, and companies will need to think very carefully about the process of implementing these things in such a way as to not disrupt the culture and the whole, I mean, they got a lot of stuff in place right now, and it needs to be done in a very deliberate fashion. Otherwise, you really are going to blow shit up and end up not being able to do what you think you can do.
Yeah. Yep.
Dan, I have a very different question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I wanted to throw at you. I don't know you know the answer to this, but maybe more just how to think about it. A lot of companies, especially big companies, especially public companies, have goals for achieving net zero, and may have to actually report publicly. I think that the SEC is working on rules for that will require companies to talk about their carbon footprints and whatever. There's a lot of carbon being spit out, especially now with the grid not being particularly green, by these tools. How might a company go about figuring out what the impact of using this stuff is on their carbon footprint?
Well, Joe, I would actually go and ask, that's a good question for Perplexity.
Okay.
I'm dead serious. Like that is a
I hear you.
question for Perplexity, and say, because that's where we want a tool that we can gauge natural language, back and forth dialogue, and try to arrive at something that is not just us trying to do it with Google search. It's almost like Google search isn't good enough now, because now that we are powered with this, we can really dive deep on a question like that. That would be a good one to actually run through.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, from a management and governance perspective, I mean, there's a lot of thought and care that has to be done. And I would just say for everybody, doing anything frivolous is probably not what you want to do. If you're going to do stuff, it needs to be things that are worthwhile and worthy of the impact that is happening when you do this stuff.
How different is the ChatGPT 3.5 from 4 that we're seeing here, and how you use it?
Sure. Yeah. So 3.5 does not have any of the capabilities. When we click on here, all these capabilities are not available here. So that's the first step. You cannot search the internet. You can't do data analyzer. You cannot do the plugins and the imaging. But I want to show you something you can do, which I'm not sure people realize. So I was helping a friend who is a kindergarten teacher, and there is an assessment of all the students. So this is student 1 through 30, and these are all the things they can do. Anyone who has kids knows this. Well, I can actually take this spreadsheet, I can copy it, and I can actually drop it into 3.5. I can drop it into the message of 4.0. And in some cases, it will read tables. And so we'll drop it into 3.5 and see if it can read that. So we drop it in, and so that's what it looks like. So I just pasted it in. And I didn't tell it what it is. We click go. I see it provided a table with student performance. So it already knew student performance because of students. If you have any specific questions, let me know. Okay, so we'll say, how should I group the students based on their scores? So now it's going through and it's kind of saying how you should group them. Now I'll say, can you group them for me? Okay, so let's see what it did. Okay, so overall performers, students who scored, student 2. Okay, I'll actually say provide list of students for each group. Now I'm going to leave that spelled wrong just to show you that it infers what our intent is. So you'll notice I spelled that, provide me a list of students. And now it's saying, okay, 217, 74 low performers. You know what? I'll say, put the students into 4 groups. There's too many groups now. Okay, so it looks like it came up with some grouping. Now, if we take that same exact thing now, we'll take the same exact thing, go into GPT-4, we should see a higher performing type of a bot. So we take this, we drop it in, and we won't say anything about what it is. We'll let it figure it out. So in that case, it turned it into an image. Let's give it a little bit more. Okay, I'll just say, put the students into 4 groups based on scores. So I'm just saying scores in general. I'm not even focusing on shapes or numbers. Okay, so for simplicity, let's consider a basic scoring method where we assign points as follows. So it's coming up with its own scoring system to analyze the students and then apply that scoring system. Would you like to proceed? So we'll say yes. So a lot of times it will work through its logic and you're engaging and you're guiding it. And if you don't like what it's doing, you can kind of say, no, I think you ought to try this. All right, so here we go. So here are your scores based on the available data. So it went through it actually scored each student with a point system. So it looked at all of the scores and then came up with some sort of pointing system. And this stuff you'd have to obviously, validate. I mean, but in some cases it might have a more sophisticated approach than the teacher. That's what we're discovering with the kindergarten teacher I'm working with. Is
So what you've really done is created a grading system.
Maybe a new grading system.
Yeah.
Right. And so this thing's just working away. And now it finally gets to the groups. And here are all the students that get into the groups. And then to kind of put the icing on the cake, we could say, create a personalized, which every teacher wants, plan for, we could do it for each student, but for each group, just to keep it simple.
Dan, it's Mitchell. Just keep in mind it's 10 to 7.
Okay, yep. So there's your kind of, you can grab some data from Excel or from a Word document, you can paste it in. One of the things I think, Joe, you look at, one of you guys said, or Doug, do you guys look at PowerPoints? If you're doing investment work, you're going to be seeing PowerPoints come in. We had a VC say to us, wait a minute, I get 50 PowerPoints a week. I could just run these through AI, and AI will take all the content out of there and give you a summary of what's in that PowerPoint, which I had not thought about that one, but that was interesting. That was an interesting use case. All right, so there's our groups.
Dan, we have a financial model, and then our clients provide lots of data to us, balance sheet, income statements across many years. Can ChatGPT like populate our template with all this data that's coming in from all these separate files?
I'd have to experiment with that. Because you basically would have to, here's how I would do that. Actually, I would load, do you have ChatGPT Plus?
I haven't used this yet. I haven't used the free version yet, but this is just amazing to me.
So I would go in, just for everybody's benefit, I would go into advanced data analyst tools, and I would actually load the template that you want your data in. And I would actually say, this is the format. I don't know if this would work, but I would say, this is the format that we want all of our client financials to consolidate into. I am going to provide you a series of financial statements now, and I want you to put those into this format. That's what I would say. And then I would see what happens. And then based on what happens, just kind of guide it. Now, one thing, you guys, this is kind of funny, but you can come up with a prompt. Like what I just said to you guys is, I want you to analyze this, make this a template. I'm going to provide you balance sheet. You could actually put this in and say, review my prompt and make it better. And it will make its prompt better. So you're actually turning the burden of even writing the prompt onto the AI and saying, you write the AI so I can accomplish this task. You see how much of a different way of thinking it is? Like, it's completely different than the way we think. It's a paradigm shift.
So in effect, from an investment perspective, you could dump in, well, I guess they couldn't put in enough data yet, but in theory, soon, you could put in an annual report, and it could come back and tell you the accounting conventions being used so that you can isolate if you like the way they keep their books and stuff.
Well, yeah, you can put in financial statements now. Yeah, you can do that now.
An annual report can be like 100 pages or so, easily for a large corporation. That's why it doesn't have the capacity yet.
Well, it does have the ability to load PDF files. But what I've found is, all right, so I have a consolidated financial statement here. I think it's Apple or something. So it's a Q1 financial statement. So I can load that into the analyzer. I wasn't impressed with its capabilities, but we could say, analyze this document. And I don't know how many pages it is. We'll have to let me open it up and see. But so I'm not sure if we're there yet, but we are.
Well, I was thinking if you just had to read the notes so it can tell you what the assumptions and conventions are, because accounting's gotten very creative over the years.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's what I loaded. Okay. So this is only the true financial statements. Okay. This is all the notes and things you're referring to. So, you know what? I would try that. I would definitely try it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's see what it did for that. Okay. So it actually knew it was a statement of operations, balance sheet, and cash flow. So it had like a P&L. I guess it's the P&L. P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. So it did recognize that. And then you could say, analyze the income statement. Let's see what happens there. You know, could it load a 50-page annual report? Wow, I don't know. I mean, that'd be interesting to see. All right, I'm gonna actually move to the next thing, just in the interest of, well, we only got 4 minutes, so I guess I'll just stop. Anybody have any, you see how like this topic is so big?
Yeah.
And I think the most important message I'll say is I really think, and we're gonna actually try to do this as a company too as well. I think there's a need for people to come together and share knowledge, and there's like a user group type mentality. We all did that in the Tableau and all the Power BI, and we did that in all those days. I think AI is going to be, because none of us can keep up with this. I mean, we're probably the most, I mean, we know a lot of stuff because we keep up on it, but there's so many things we don't know. And I think what you guys are going to find is the more people you can talk to and share and bounce ideas off of, the better you are. Because I mean, we learn stuff every single day. Something's coming our way and we're like, wow, that's pretty interesting. It's moving so fast. And so you really just want to stay in tune, try to find, you know, just be plugged in and play around, experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment with the tool. It's, you know, I would say if you got some sensitive data, and you're going to load some Excel files, just make sure you don't have the company in there. Just remove all the company information or any kind of private information, then you're good to go.
Is it possible to use, I gotta get my terms right, Claude, I guess it is, to summarize data or information and then move it over to ChatGPT to use the
Yes,
detailed analysis?
as a matter of fact, in preparing a proposal, one time we had to load like a 50-page document. We got all kinds of rich stuff out of that 50-page, but we thought GPT-4 was a better writer. So we then moved over to GPT-4 and finished it. Yes.
So just copy it in and give it the command, the message. Okay.
But just so you know, ChatGPT is going to be able to take very large documents soon. It's only probably a month or two away. So the whole Claude thing won't be a problem anymore. Like we won't need Claude. Claude's good, but it's not as good as GPT-4.
Yeah.
What did the image? I know we don't have time to see the images, but what does that do just conceptually?
Okay, yeah, let me just give you, okay, so under GPT-4, DALL-E 3, and I'll give you an example. A company wants to mock up a product idea. So I'm going to say it right here, see if I can use my voice to say it. Create a mock-up of a marathon trophy for New York. Make it 8 inches by 5 inches and make it 3D. So so now it will actually go out and come up with ideas. Now, what's cool about this is, and I'm sold on it now because I saw it in action, it comes back with some incredible concepts. Like I put a picture of a mobile app that we're helping a client with, and I said, come up with variations of this. It was really cool. Okay, so here's like, in like 5 seconds, it gave an idea for the New York Marathon. And you could then say, well, this is good. Give me some more concepts, or make it this, or make it that. And so this is an incredible concepting tool that I when people discover it, that it's going to unleash, I think, a lot of creativity. So there you go. So we could say, okay, you know, give me 2 more variations, you know. And so that's image generation.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you did that.
Let me throw one thing out there because we're running over. We've been working with Dan trying to come up with a way to get everybody in a room and offer training. And there's no real resources at the moment to get that done. Dan and his company have been working on doing that for their clients. And I'll let him speak, but we normally do not advertise services as Beacon. But just because there's been so much interest in this, Dan, why don't you show them what you have coming?
Sure, yeah. So we have on December 1st, we're doing a hands-on. I'll just show the event. We're doing a hands-on event where it's bring your laptop, have your GPT Plus account, and it's building stuff. And we're doing it for 6.5 hours. So we kind of have plenty of time to let people digest, build, check with their neighbor. Like we'll have enough time for people to digest. Because right now I went through an hour and a half and it was just me pretty much talking. But really what you guys need is you need time to actually take the example I just did and then you run it through. And then you kind of play with it and get the feedback. And because you can't really learn this stuff unless you're on it. So we're just, we thought we would have a hands-on workshop and we've done these before for companies, but now we're just going to put it out there and start to actually do it to everyone. So anyway, if you're interested, I'll send you the link or we can put the link out.
But you want people to have the premium version, not the free version.
Yeah, you got to have the plus version, which is $20 a month, but it's really a no-brainer. Honestly, it's yeah, it's definitely so.
So I've got one comment before you go. There's a program out now called Cage Magic. It sounds an awful lot like either like Claude, where you can take.
What's it called? What's it called?
It's called Cage Magic. CAGEMAGIC. And what it does is I use Fathom to take video notes. So if you download the transcript from Fathom and feed it into Cage Magic, it'll do what Claude does or Perplexity. It'll give you a complete summary, ask it questions, it'll generate action items. It's very interesting, but I'm thinking whether they're using Perplexity or Claude as their basic generator program. We're just charging extra for it.
Well, yeah, just so you guys know, there are only, I actually got this picture right here. These are called frontier models, and how they're distributed across the world. The frontier models are like the big ones, the ones that took a long time to trade, a lot of money. Google has one, OpenAI has one, which is ChatGPT. Bard is Google, although it's going to change, it's going to be Gemini soon. Anthropic is Claude. Meta has Facebook, which is called Llama. And then XAI is Elon Musk company. They're coming out with one. And then there's a bunch of open source models. But right now, the leader is OpenAI. Clearly, it's by hands down. Then I would say Anthropic and Meta are probably the same. Google should have an incredible model given the company, but they just haven't been able to get their act together. They got caught off guard. And then there's a DeepMind, which is associated with Google, and that's in England. And then there's China. And China's, as I like to say, these value systems are very different when these models are created, and they do reflect the I'll just say the cultures that they come from. And so it is important that we stay leaders in AI for a number of reasons. But right now, this is it. These are who build the big ones. There are a couple open source that are pretty darn impressive. But right now, these are the commercial companies right here.
What did you say the Google name will be after Bard?
Well, it's Bard sits on something called Palm, and but that seems to be a stopgap. Their main platform going forward should be Gemini, is what we think. They said we thought they were going to release it this year, but it looks like early next year, and it's supposed to be pretty good, like a competitor with OpenAI. Right now, OpenAI is they're just killing it. I mean, these guys just come out. They just came out Monday with, I can't even get into it now, like some really cool stuff that is is going to really blow people away.
But it's not available yet, right?
That's
The turbo.
there's a playground available to play with it and test it, but the no, it's not. It's over the next month or two they're going to roll it out.
Okay.
Some of these features. They're also going to have an app store, so people are going to build AI models and they're going to be able to sell it on the app store. So people will come up with very interesting ways in these AI models that, like, I'm building one called a teacher bot, a teacher assistant, and it's basically just designed to help teachers. And then when OpenAI released on Monday their capabilities, is going to take this teacher bot and just kind of make it a lot more capable.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.